Det är mycket snack också.
I would like to say welcome to Sound Talk. This is a conversation about sound and hosted by the Real Group Academy and by Josef and me. And in this episode, we have the legendary Italian, Swedish producer, composer, singer, and friend of mine, Erik Bosio.
Hello, everybody. I totally agree with friend of yours. The rest might be a little up to opinions. But hello. Thank you for having me.
We will dive into a lot of topics here. It would be interesting for us and for the listeners to just hear a little bit about your background, Erik. Talking about music, has it been something you chose at some point, or have you been...
Right. Well, no, not at all. Music was there from the very beginning because both my parents are musicians, classical musicians. So as a kid, that was normal. I thought that everybody else had the same life, of course. So I would wake up and they would have, I don't know, Le Nozze di Figaro by Mozart on TV, the Swedish Bergman version.
Oh, yeah.
In Swedish. And that was really weird. But they are both choral conductors. They would take me to rehearsals and I was 4 and I didn't have Lego or my video games. So I would just wander around the choir, figuring out who was doing what. So that became very normal. And then, of course, I started studying piano when I was 6. And then I got interested in vocal music and arranging, especially arranging and composing, creating more than performing. That was the thing when I was around 11, 12. And then I ended up studying classical composition, conservatory and stuff. Back then, I didn't have any clue about what my life would be music-wise, but for sure, I didn't want to become a producer. That was never a goal. That's actually the weirdest part, that my job was not what I studied for and not what I wanted to do. It just happened.
Mm.
And I feel like you have, Morten, kind of like... You didn't want to become a producer, did you? Like, that was not your thing, right? At first, at least.
Not at first, but then I think I grew more and more into the idea of actually being able to follow the product the way, if you know what I mean. After you wrote the piece or arranged the song, I think that got more and more interesting. So it wasn't because I wanted to be a producer, no, but I think that it was that curiosity that I need to know more about this because I can affect
a lot,
the music even more.
Right. If you start arranging and composing, and I used to care a lot about that. And I thought that producing was kind of, you press the R button and you record your arrangement. That's what's hard about that. And then, of course, you tweak stuff. But the big thing is the music that you create and perform. And then, because I almost never liked how other people would produce my music, not because they weren't good, but because they weren't inside my brain, or they were just different people doing things differently, then I started recording myself. I started caring a lot about that, and I ended up being a producer. I wanted to record and to tweak my compositions or arrangements.
Mm. Do you have any thoughts on that, Josef? Where you're coming from and what you're doing?
Yeah.
I can just say that I really recognize myself in your story, because my parents were also music teachers. My mother was a choir conductor and my father was a drum teacher. So I had a lot of music in my home as well. So I can really see that journey, and that you just keep on doing stuff and you experience music, and then the decision to be a producer or composer or something, that is more like, I just want this to exist. I'm interested in these different parts of making it. How do I record this, or how can I play this instrument, or how can I make this sound, and exploring that journey. That's how I became a producer and composer. So I recognize that.
It's very interesting what you said about I want it to exist, because I saw a movie the other day and some character asked the other character, why do you create art? Why do you write? And the answer really was nice, because he said, well, because sometimes I have an idea or a feeling, or I'm having the best time, And that makes me want to create something. And the reason why is that I want that moment or that thing to last forever. If I don't do that, it will disappear.
Mm.
So you make art also to make something exist.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist if you don't record it in a way or perform it.
Yeah. Morten and Erik, you have made things exist together. You have created music together, right? You are writers in a collaboration.
Yeah, with Jussi Chydenius from Rajaton, yes.
Mm. Yeah,
and we still do.
We met, over the last almost 10 years? We wanted to get to know each other better, actually. And we also, food and wine has always been a part of our meetings, but...
I would say 50%. It's exciting because we never know. We meet kind of once a year, let's say. It's like a journey where we know that we're going to meet and we never know what we're going to do. And that's really nice because we don't have any pressure. Sometimes maybe we have more normal work because we also write or produce for other people together, which is very exciting. But we don't really know what's going to happen, and we don't have the pressure of, we have that deadline, or we have to do this thing or that thing. We just experiment creativity in different ways, and that's very exciting because we're very different people, but also similar in many ways, and it's really exciting, and I'm really grateful for that homestay, which is our name, exists.
Yeah,
it's a really nice part of my life. Yeah, it's really crazy because we went from producing like almost hip hop trap songs to write a missa for choir, or pop songs from the 80s sometimes, or it's really freeing.
Yeah, or Christmas song for a Finnish choir.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rules.
But is it similar in any way to write for hip hop and to write choral music, like creativity?
That's interesting.
I think I would say yes, because it's about having this spark or this thing in your head. I have an idea, I think, and how do you get it out? And as you say, Erik, the nice free thing with this collaboration is that whether it's a Kyrie that you want to write or it's like a Bon Jovi rock song that you have in your head, we can actually, at least with today's plugins and stuff like that, you are actually able to get quite close quite quickly.
Yeah, and the very nice thing is that we try to be open to what happens, because in our normal jobs, you kind of know what's going on, which it's amazing. If you have to produce something, if you have to do coach a choir or whatever it is, you kind of know what's going to happen in a way, even though things might change along the way. But for us, I remember the Missa, for example, that we wrote. We were in Rapallo, which is by the sea in northern Italy, in Liguria. And I came up with this melody that I heard it sung by a choir in my head. And the other guys, Jussi, Morten, they said, well, let's work on this. And they wrote their own parts of the Missa that wasn't a Missa at first. They were inspired by that thing that I made. So the flow that we create by following somebody's idea. Or Morten is very good with lyrics, and sometimes it comes with a sentence. So I jump in and maybe come up with a melody. But to answer your question, I think the spark that Morten is talking about, that is, to me at least, always the same. Like the idea and that kind of excitement or vibration in your soul when you have that idea, it doesn't really matter for what it is, if it's a trap song or a classical composition. So that part is the same. Then, of course, you have to decide maybe what you want to do with it. So after that, things change when you start recording and producing, but that spark is the same.
Yeah, and how much do you, when you have this idea, this spark, or you like hear the music or have a vision of it, how much is like writing the piece and how much is picturing the sound of it, the production, the mic positions almost.
Well, I'm very curious about what Morten is thinking about this. In my opinion, I'm afraid that the more I I make music, and as I get older, the less I feel the urge of deciding. An idea can come from many places, and all of those things get mixed in my brain sometimes. So I actually try, when I have an idea, I try to respect that idea very much, because I know it's not rare, but it's special. It's different from having to make something because somebody's paying you for it. And that idea comes and you have it and you have to respect it. That's why when I have it, sometimes I try not to sit at the piano and play, because I know that my muscular memory or my habits will do things that will fight that idea. So I try to, for a week maybe, or sometimes for days, I try to, think about that idea, and without trying to dress it with a production idea or some sort of arranging idea. And that I understood, after years. I know that idea will keep coming back and it will form itself in a way. But I have to respect that idea, because maybe I sing it on a note, just the melody, if it's a melody. Or if it's a chord progression, I will play the chords, but without really making music, because I know that I might disrespect that idea, But that's the very first part. Then when I start producing, of course, I think about all the things you said, my positions or style, every style has sounds and different elements, musical elements. I always try to not fall into a closed bubble of style. So that's also a creative, fun thing to do. But yeah, I don't want to think about any of those things before that idea really came to life, because I'm afraid of interfering with the idea. If I lose to anxiety in a way, because when you get an idea, you feel like you have to put it down, and that almost always ruins the idea. So I have to wait and let it grow inside of me.
Yeah.
Some other times the idea already contains the style, or I know it's the choral composition because the idea is the choral composition.
Yeah, and then maybe you can hear it in the acoustics as you would experience it. I mean, if I think about a choir piece, I might hear it in a church or something. I might not hear it in my head as it's in a studio or something.
But you write for choral. You write choral music that is performed mainly in churches, or
both. Yeah,
right.
Both for churches and other acoustics. I have a choir with 30 singers and we have 30 microphones. And one time we also brought this beatboxer, Matthias, that you may know.
Right.
I actually tried this, the Running Out of Time that you wrote. You were part of it, right? Yeah, and I mean, that piece is a very...
It's a homestay thing.
Yeah, it's a homestay piece, and I love it so much. And I performed it with my students when I was a conductor teacher at the folkhögskola, Bromma folkhögskola.
Ja, visst.
Ja, visst. What is folkhögskola in English? It's like...
I think you say folk high school, like it's a high school, but with a more open curriculum, right?
What I love with that song is it was really rhythmical and also a bit challenging with the harmonies without being too complicated.
Because UC doesn't want us to be complicated.
Yeah, all right, but it sounded really big, and that was also a genre that would work with close microphones, but also in church acoustics. That was really nice.
Erik, I'm quite curious if you zoom a little bit out on when you started to record things and get interested. What has changed in the way you approached recording back then? Like maybe even practical or philosophical, and how you approach a recording with Cluster now?
When I started recording, as I said, I did it because I was tired of having to go to a studio and work with people that, I live in northern Italy, and studios here don't know what a cappella music is. So it was hard to go there and do what I wanted. And also money, and also time, and take the car and go there. So this was like about 20 years ago. It was the time where a home studio recording was starting to be a thing. It wasn't like now, of course, but you could have a decent quality. Sound cards were starting, and converters started to be, well, affordable, first of all, and also quality-wise kind of decent. So I started doing that, and I had been listening to a lot of vocal groups that came before me, such as the Rear Group, of course, and Take Six, but also Swingle Singers and groups that are not quite popular in the a cappella scene, such as Vox One, which I suggest you all listen to. And also, like, because they were very fusion, which is something I was interested in outside the a cappella scene. So I started recording myself, not knowing what to do, but I knew by listening to all the groups I mentioned how I wanted it to sound. And as somebody said, like, when we make music, whether it's producing or arranging or composing, we are basically the sum of all the things that we listen to, filtered through our sensitivity. So I kind of wanted that fine touch that the Rear Group had, but it was powerful, even though I could hear that they were singing very softly and the bass was going dum, dum. I knew that. I could feel that he was singing very softly, but the sound was so powerful. And the rest of the group as well. But I also wanted that kind of power that Take Six had. And I also wanted that, that fusion, rhythmical and, quartal sounding chords that Vox One had. But then I listened to a lot to Erik Bosio. And so I like that kind of classical take on this chords that were not really classical. I wanted a modern sound, but I wanted that kind of feel. So I started trying things. I had no idea what I was doing because I had studied, as I said, arranging and composition and piano and maybe a little singing, but there was no school for production over here. So it was the early days of YouTube, and I just started looking for forums, where people would tell you how to use EQ and compression. And compression was such a mystery. I remember that. What is compression? Even now, I'm not sure I got it.
Yeah, I hear you.
Perfectly. I mean, I start learning new things about compression, and it's so funny after 20 years. And but that's interesting because to answer the question, I think that the biggest realization that I had is that even people, really cool sound engineers and producers that really knew their things, and I would see them either on YouTube or in real life in nice studios. I would see them open the EQ and do and close it, and then compression. Oh, the threshold, yeah, attack. I was like, what is it? It was like rocket science to me. And I assumed I will never be able to do that because chances are I will never study that so much. But once I realized that nobody knows what they're doing, I mean, they do. They do. But, that's the nicest thing that anybody told me ever in my life. Like the biggest tip I've ever received was when I was worried about production. They said, hey, calm down. Nobody knows what they're doing. So from there, I started to trust my ears more than the rules of production, which was kind of scary and it felt kind of disrespectful because I grew up in a classical music family and I went to the conservatory, and in this world, they tell you that you either know and study or you don't do things, So to make music and play with it felt dirty to me. Like I shouldn't be do this because I'm not as good as that producer. But that's how I got into producing, and that's what made it fun. And of course, it was studying. It was like studying, but not in an academical way. But what changed technically was that I, beside learning notions about the sonic world and the physics of the sound, I really started to trust my ears more than what is right and what is wrong. There are those rules about how you should EQ and high pass, and of course most of them are very useful and right, but sometimes you hear things that are mixed perfectly from a technical point of view, and they don't sound good in a way. They don't sound emotionally compelling. I don't know. But that's to follow that journey, that pattern of just sitting down on the computer and try stuff. That's what changed, and that's what I did for years. And I'm still doing it. I still try to combine, the rules with what sounds good. And if I want a baritone voice, I don't know. If I don't want to take down the 240, it's there, and because that's the right thing to do. I don't care. I want that. I think that sounds good actually in this particular case. Of course, it's right in most cases, but that kind of leap is what changed in the way from when I started, and I was trying to do things technically the best way possible. I jumped into, but I have to like it. If I my iPhone, I think it was either Kanye maybe, who they released a song, but they were missing some sort of verse, and he recorded the thing on the phone. And it ended up in the recording, and it was a hit. For me, that's crazy. You shouldn't be doing that. It's illegal. But actually, it is legal. It's very legal.
And it worked.
Connecting to what we were talking about earlier, when you have this idea, the spark, and you don't want to disrupt the process. And if it takes too long time to get a microphone that is that good, now you can do stuff with your phone that is good enough, or no one will know the difference. I mean, that could help the creative process.
For me, it's still crazy. My brain goes, no, you shouldn't do that. Because that's the world I come from, where we really respect the quality of recording. But it's an internal fight that I have, because I also produce a lot of younger, kids that they make music. Somebody was born in 2002. They don't care. They don't care about that because, there's a little bit too much of 1,000. They don't care. And it looks very nice. It looks like they're feeling very good about not having those issues. But, it's a combination of things. It's a balance that I try to, I like to keep it alive, and at the same time making it sound as good as possible.
Yeah, and the more experience you have, the more the more complex things just get. It's
you also, Morten. I mean, you are a master of that, of technical. But mixing. I way more than me, at least.
I was very inspired by Anders, I would say, and he definitely has a great sense of control as well. And what should you control, and what should you leave, so you have the emotional impact in a track. And I'm sure, he's also learned that by by doing and see what works and what doesn't, and staying open to not falling into the, like you say, that you trust your ears instead of trusting what you see or what you did last time. I think
so. Maybe the new real group will use their phones on a song.
Let's see.
Det är mycket snack också.